Randy. Randy, you are on the air with Megan, Christy, and Claire.
Hi, Claire. Hi, Megan. Hi, Christy.
Howdy.
Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you for staying on the line so long.
Yeah, thanks, Randy.
Well, it was interesting to hear the history. I had looked into it of the Me Too movement, so good refresher, of course. So I wanted to give my perspective because I'm a 52-year-old male. And, I mean, I'm single now, but I've been in relationships. But I'm a little confused about this fear that men are having about the Me Too movement. I don't feel that I have to adjust anything in my relationships to women, be it at the workplace or in the elevator or like if I want to approach someone romantically. I'm just confused. At first, I was confused, but I'm starting to see how the education of men and women, but mostly men since children, is to exert that position of power. And I'm just looking at what happens in schools. You know, a lot of these schools have these dress codes, and basically the focus of these dress codes is the teenage girls.
Of course it is. It's only girls. Yeah.
Absolutely. You wouldn't want them to distract the guys.
They're teens.
It's like, come on. And first of all, that doesn't speak well of what they think of the poor teenage boys. Because teenage boys are not monsters in and of themselves. They're taught to see, they see that they see other adults and of authority objectifying, because that's I don't know how else to call it, like calling out this teenage girl for her dress in school is objectifying her. Or I don't know. Do you agree? I mean, I see it that way.
Yes.
So and then other teenage boys see, or teenage or pre-teenage boys see that. That's they're in the midst of their development. Well, that's what you're taught. And I remember that I sort of was taught that in a sense. And I actually didn't grow up in this country. I grew up in Colombia, South America, and so I think it's probably why it was worse. And they teach you, and then you have peer pressure to exert power. It has nothing to do with being horny or no. It's about power showing off. It's kind of like the art of the conquest rather than having a relationship and with other women. And so we're being taught since we're like very young to do this. So.
Yeah, if it was about orgasms, it would be a hell of a lot simpler, right? Because
women can get them too.
Well, that's a consideration. But from a very mechanical, cavalier standpoint, I hesitate to overstress this fact. But if it was all about men desperately seeking orgasm, there are much shorter routes to get to it than pressuring your secretary or raping a stranger. I'm sorry to put it in such
maybe some self-involved ways.
Yes. If orgasm was the only goal, there would clearly be easier ways to get to that point. But you're right. It is about power. It's about domination. It's about security, self-respect, and really warped ideas of these concepts.
Yeah, and if you don't act on that as a teenage boy or a young adult, other males and society are like, oh, you're just a weak, because and I remember clearly when I was on a bus when I was about 17 or 16, and I was with a bunch of my classmates, and there was this girl holding on to the railing, and they were like, oh, touch her butt, you have to touch her butt, and if you didn't, they would be all over you. But that's something that's it's not because men have to be that way. It's because we're being educated in that manner. I guess I was not a very good student at learning those power lessons, but
hey, better on you.
And the thing is, on the other hand, coming back to the present with this fear that men have that whatever they. I mean, first of all, I've never been accused of doing anything inappropriate, and I know I would feel bad, but I hope that if I ever did, I would really examine it instead of saying, "Oh, no, I'm an innocent." I would examine what happened and self-reflect and just let that. Because but I've never have been. I never had, and nowadays I would say it's the opposite. Nowadays it's the best time to be a man like who wants to pursue romantics or sexual relationships, because women are being empowered to say what they want and not what they don't want. So if you approach a woman and you can talk, as you said, and I love that, you talk to them, you know what they want, what they don't want, so you're very clear. You have it's laid out, like, I know what's the deal here. I don't have to be guessing, I don't have to be afraid, because I'm asking the person, what do you want? You're not interested? Okay, clear, done. Oh, you want to ask me out? Fantastic.
Can I?
And what do you want? So then I think it's even better for us, and then therefore for women, if we learn that lesson, that now that things are more outspoken, we can know better. We can learn how to talk. And that's going back. We as teenagers and kids, we are not taught also how to talk to people.
I agree, and I think it's important what you said about just using words.
Yeah.
And talking to each other. Because nobody says that talking about what you like and what you don't like can't be sexy.
Exactly.
It can be. And it can be a kind of foreplay. And it's also, it can be a kind of foreplay and a requirement at the same time.
Yeah. And enthusiastic consent is I can't think of anything more sexy than that.
Yeah,
but
yeah. And I think I remember Matt Dillahunty in one of I think it was the Atheist Experience. He said that if you talk and look for the person that is really enthusiastic into your kinks, so they want to go on the same level, you're going to have the best sex ever. You're going to have the best sex ever, rather than trying to force your kinks or your desires on someone that's not consensual, that's unwilling.
Yeah.
It's just as simple as that.
Yeah, I can't believe I haven't brought up bodily autonomy yet, but
we kind of have touched on it
a little bit. But the bodily autonomy piece is so important. It's been said so often that I think it's tropish, but treat women like you would treat your best friend. So would you walk up to your best friend? Well, no. See, mother, then you start getting into the women are property and have to be owned, and you wouldn't treat property. But like your best friend, and would you walk up to them and pat them on the butt, or would you say, "Hey, you look awesome today"? So how would you like to be treated? And treat women like that. We're people. And I'm not saying that to be cute.
A sort of different nuanced perspective on that. And I see it as I'm a Spanish interpreter and translator for the public defenders here.
Cool.
And so when we get defendants that are accused of forcible touching on the subway, and by the way, this happens. There are false accusations, but it's not because the women is believed. Is that the police are kind of very aggressive, so they pick up people, and they're like, sometimes the women is like, I didn't feel anything. But it does happen too. There's creeps touching women and rubbing themselves on the subway. But going to the point of when we're establishing a defense, sometimes the defense and that the attorneys are promoting this is, well, I'm married and I have daughters, and I would never want someone to do that to my daughters, therefore I would never do that. But my perspective is more that it's irrelevant, or it should be irrelevant, if I have a sister or daughter or a girlfriend or daughters. It should be just because she is a person and she has a right to control her body and to prohibit or allow access to her body on her own terms. Regardless, it's not about. I think it's fine to think, oh, I wouldn't want this to happen to my sister, but I think it's even more essential that I don't want this to happen to this other person. I don't want this person to feel violated by me or anyone else just because she is a person, and she should have absolute control of what happens to her body, inside and outside, and that's my pro-choice.
Another human being.
It's like if we can't personally relate to it, it doesn't matter. And I say that as a man speaking about men. unless a man is affected by it, unless we're
You maverick.
imagining our mothers, our sisters, our daughters, these people being affected by it, then it's like it didn't really matter because it didn't affect me. And as a man, that's what's important.
Yeah, and also it gets back to the whole property thing. Somebody will stop hitting on someone if they realize, what's the number one way you get rid of somebody who's hitting on you? Oh, I'm with him, or which is,
you know, as
it
a poly person, I find that absolutely devastating.
I'm
but it's the
interested in the
reality.
girl over there.
Yeah.
right. But you have to be somebody's property in order for them to leave you alone. And it should be simple, like not interested, thanks.
That really ought to be enough. You don't need an excuse, an explanation.
Right. And the ease with which one deals with rejection is easier the older you get, right, Randy?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, seriously, I'm 53, and if somebody says, "Hey, you screwed up," or "I don't like that," or "I don't," whatever, you're grown up at this point. It's when you're younger that it's harder. I've got to say
Yeah, it is. It is true. It is true. And but you know, I think I'm hoping, and this is, you know, I don't know if I'm going to see it in my lifetime, but I'm hoping we'd come and with this Me Too movement and. That it will come to the point where these conversations are almost unnecessary, that the norm is that we respect each other's autonomy and we respect other people and there's no property. I mean, I'm hoping that it leads to that. And my only fear, and I think you guys mentioned it, is that it starts to quiet down. I mean, I'm more excited when I see, you know, like the women in the Supreme Court yelling and frustrating, like Orrin Hatch and like these people, and like their attitudes, like, oh, well, how dare you question my male patriarchy? We shouldn't put up with this, I think, is what he said. Yeah. And I just don't want. I hope that it doesn't quiet down. I hope it just gets.
I'm not planning on being quiet. Are you, Megan Woman?
No.
Right.
No.
Okay.
That's a solid no.
Yeah.
Well,
so.
Right.
That's my take on this.
Well, Randy, thank you so much for your call.
Thank you
and I
so
think
much.
we, in general, can all agree.
Yay.
Yeah.
Raging agreement.
Right.
Yay.
So we hope to hear
thank you for
from
taking
you.
my call.
Oh, of course, and we hope to hear from you again on a different topic.
Okay.
Bye.
That'll be nice. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
So, I would say that was a nice, refreshing
Yeah.
call.
Yeah.
Not the norm for, guys.
Although I've got to say that the godless bitches, we get a lot of email, and I think 90% of it, 95% of it is men writing in saying, right on, keep on doing what you're doing, and it's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then on Facebook, they're the assholes, of course, and they tend to be loud and awful. But I'm heartened by the number of men who jump in and say, "Listen, you're a dick. Back off. You're wrong." And
I mean, I have no problem saying that myself.
yeah, but they don't. But it takes an ally to make difference,
Right.
and it has to be
Someone
men
of the same.
standing up, because otherwise it just doesn't get taken care of. It doesn't get changed, because I can't change it. The guys, I got to change it.
Right.